lot we can learn about it. We're going to continue these talks. We're going to go to every 2 weeks, but we've got in 2 weeks we have a talk coming up about designing your models. So neural networks and some of the machine learning, different approaches for how to do that, and how to construct a model. We'll be going into that, and then we've got some time series analysis and more coming down the road. So I'm real excited for the schedule. We've got to keep this going, even while we can't really get all in the same room. So we'll have emails about that. If you're not on the email list and would like to be, please send Mindy or I a message, and we'll get you on. And hopefully we can start getting some in-person going in the near future, so that all of you can that haven't had a chance to meet yet can. If you look up and down on the chat list, you'll find there's some really, really great people around Denver and then around the industry. There's actually, I think, some people have been joining from some really far away locations, which has been really fun. So you should definitely get to know some of the people that are on the chat and that are coming into these calls. There's a really great community developing around being more digital, or being more expanding the toolkit we can use for podcasts. So with that, I'm excited to see what Matt can show us as we all learn a little bit. Matt, go for it.
Hey, so let's see here. I will go ahead and pop on over to, okay, let's see here. Screen one. All right. If you guys go ahead and just pop on over to GitHub and pull up that Colab notebook. And if you have two screens, you'll want to set that up. But we can go ahead and head in here and just open up in Colab. So just out of curiosity here, how many people scrape out of on their daily? Not a lot? Yes, no? Okay. So I know that there's probably not everybody that's on here that doesn't work for a super major. But also, if you're lucky enough to have a tech, then he might want to kill you, or she, if you're going to go ahead and have them pull out thousands of loads for a regional stuff. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to automate some of these tasks. And it's basically, there's three different types of scraping. There's doing a direct request. There is going in and interacting with a browser itself, so mimicking human activities. And then there's the third with the spider. I'll touch on the first two. The first thing that you need to do is you need to go in and you need to look at terms of service on the website, because you can get in legal trouble for scraping websites that tell you not to. The other thing is don't be a dick, because what you can do is you can actually automate enough traffic on these websites that you can interfere with other people utilizing that. So be a good citizen and put some time weights in there. The other thing is that with scrapers, you're writing code that will interact with somebody else's code. So as websites get updated, you need to be aware that that happens. So make sure you have some checks in there so you know when a scraper goes down. All right, with this, everybody raise your hand so that I, with this knowledge, will not be a dick. So, but we'll go ahead and get started with that. Scraping without a browser. This is generally a much faster way of doing it. Because you don't have to load all the images and everything else that's associated with it, it runs a little bit quicker, but you can't do it on all websites. With this instance, I'll show you a slightly different version of one that I actually run from the Jupyter notebooks. We use GeoPandas to open up a shapefile, and you'll get a warning on this. There's nothing malicious in this, so you can go ahead and do it. And because GeoPandas isn't included in what we can normally get, we'll go ahead and import that for Colab. And then set up some variables for the number of panda rows and columns that we're getting. This content originally came raise his hand. Originally came from the well spot shapefile from COGCC. All we're doing is getting the APIs off of that. And in a new tab, we're going to go ahead and open up COGCC's website. We'll go to Facility. We'll go to Well. We'll go down in Jackson County. Hit Submit. And we'll go ahead and take a look at this first well here. So if you click on it and pay attention to your URL up here, if you click directly, you notice that it doesn't change. There's a non-unique. But if we go ahead and go in here and right click that and tell it to go to a new tab. Yeah.
Are you sharing your screen?
Yeah, I thought it was.
All I see is your nice face.
Oh, yeah? I don't know if it's not nice. Let's see here.
There we go.
Okay. So
Thank you.
let's see here. We'll go ahead and pop back. I thought I did. So if you guys don't have that open, just open up the GitHub that was sent out and hit open in Colab. And if you're not familiar with this, you click in a cell and hit Shift Enter to run the cell. I've ran basically pull in GeoPandas, and we've went ahead and imported our other libraries here. And then where I am at, we went over and we imported our API numbers. That's where we're sourcing them for. And then if you right click on the COGCC tab, that's where we pulled this up. So what that is I was talking about how if you click on this directly, it doesn't give you a unique URL. But if you either look in the lower left-hand corner when I hover over that, you can get a unique URL here. Or if you open in a new tab, we get to look at it. What there's a base URL, and then separated by a question mark, it's passing different variables to their system, which then looks it up and then generates this web page. And what we're going to do is I'm going to first show you the manual process on how to do it, just so you have an understanding on that, and then also show how to do it with Beautiful Soup later on. But what we're going to do is then we'll go take, and let's say we want to get all the tops out of this information. So we'll go ahead and right click, and at least in Chrome, we can go and then inspect. So we can see within here that we have, for each formation, they're starting a loop that writes out this HTML code. So we know that this occurs in the HTML at the very beginning of the loop and at the end of the loop. And this content right in here is what we're going to be looking for. So we'll go ahead and pop back over here. This is the base URL that I mentioned before. There's the tail variable that we're going to put on it. And if you look, need that to pop back up so I can do it. This right here, that facility ID, is actually the API without any delimiters and without the state code. So knowing that, we can go ahead and we're going to say, hey, we're going to take this API, we're going to strip out the delimiter, we're going to remove the state code and combine it with the base URL and the tail URL. Then we're going to use a Python library called requests and a method called get to just get that. With this request, we'll get a response back. We'll take a look at the encoding that they're using, as well as the status code. We're looking for a status code of 200. That's saying that it was a good request, it was received, and then information was sent back. So once we know that we have a 200, we can take a look at the text. that actually comes back. And what this is it's all of the special characters in the HTML that we had before. And we can see down in here is that loop for each. And then where's the other one? There's testing records. It's in there. So we can take this then, and we can go in here and we can say, okay, for that text, I'm going to split it at the beginning of the loop. We'll take the second one in that split. We'll split it again at the end of the loop, and we'll take the first of that split. So we can go ahead and run that. And we get it in there cleaned up a little bit. We can also remove our special characters. So we'll do that just by replacing them. So we'll remove new lines, returns, and tabs. The next thing we're going to do is we'll break it apart by rows. So within that, the TR tag, that's an HTML tag for a new row within that table, we'll break them apart, and then we'll say for each of those rows, I only want the ones that have a length of more than 0. Then we have for each top, we have a row in here. We can then go and for each of those tops, for each top in those tops, we can then look for the different columns or cells within that in the HTML. We'll do the same thing. We'll get rid of any of the empty ones. And then if we look at the patterns that we see in here from the way that they write their website, we can see that the formation names are preceded by the color navy. So we'll go ahead and use that to split it out. We can also see over here that our depths right in here preceded by font size 2. And we want the first time that occurs. So then we can go in and split those. So in order to do that, and then we take a peek at that, we can grab the formation and the depth directly from the HTML. So we're going to take all this stuff, and I'll show you how you go ahead and find that, and we'll roll it up in a function. So what this says is, we'll call it top parse. We're going to feed the text from our response. We'll go ahead and split out just the top section. We'll go ahead and strip out our extra characters or our special characters, break out each row, cut that down to only the ones that have any length to them. Then we'll make a dictionary under formations, and we'll say for each row, we're going to break out the cells like we did here, and we'll get the formation and the depth from that. And then we'll return that dictionary. So we'll go ahead and read in that function, and then we'll test it with the response that we had before. And what this does is then it gives us a nice dictionary with each of the reported formations and the tops from that well. So any time that you write up a scraper, you're going to be interacting with possible unknowns. So try excepts are extremely important because you may run into a well that doesn't have the same format that the other ones do, and you want it to just print that out to an error file rather than having it break your scraper. And I have been guilty of it and learned it the hard way of something that's needed for Monday, and you fire it up and it's looking good, and you come back and look at the logs, and late Saturday night it went down, and it's 2 days of stuff to pull. So definitely put your try excepts in there. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and we'll make an empty data frame. We'll give an I for an iterator. I like to go ahead and save out every so often. We'll go ahead and we're only going to run the first 10 for this example. And we'll go ahead and we're going to say for our samples that we had before, we'll iterate through those for the index and row. We'll add 1 to count on our I here. This is what I normally do. So if you get above a certain amount, then you'd go ahead and save out and reset it. And it gives a status. But we'll go ahead and try we'll break out just the county and well code from the API. We'll put it with our base URL, that part in there, and the tail. We'll have requests get it. If we have a good response code, we'll go ahead and then use our function to go ahead and pull the tops out of that. Then we'll go ahead and go in here and use that and update once we have our API in there, our data frame. And then we'll take it and we'll let it sleep because we want to be good citizens. We don't want to overload the system. So we can go ahead and run that, and that'll go on the background. And then once it gets going. In the class that I teach, this is one of the things out of it. I actually give all of it for Jackson County. I think that's, sorry, can you send me an image? Oh. This is a basic example of requests. You also, if you get into a little bit more, definitely check out URLib. These packages, there's stuff, and I'll talk about this in a second with BS4, our beautiful soup, that actually make this quite a bit easier as you get in. Now we're going to go ahead and let that running, and I'll start talking about Selenium. So the differences between requests and Selenium is that request, it's a little bit quicker, and you can only use it on websites that don't require interactions with the website in order to access the data that you need. And then there's our tops that just popped up for each of the wells. So with Selenium, it allows you to interact with buttons that may trigger JavaScript code on the backside. A lot of the gotchas that they put in place in order to make scraping harder, you can interact with those and check that I am a human checkbox. For this example, we're going to go ahead and we'll go back to COGC's website. And we're going to go to well, or let's see here. We'll go to Weld County, and I gave a specific example for a well. And we'll go ahead and put that in there. So 39340. Hit submit. We'll pop over to well. And COGCC, they go in and they put the production behind the highlighted well name. So we'll go ahead and open that up in a new tab. So we have our data in here, but this is an example of where you would not be able to do this with just requests if you wanted the Excel file from that. So we'll go ahead and go to inspect. And we can also check on here, and you can a lot of times see, and you can copy the URL directly. But what this is you go over here and it actually executes stuff on the other side. So there is not a unique URL in order to pull that. But what we can do is we can go into the element within the website that we were interested in, go over here and copy the XPath. Yeah, definitely. So that XPath then allows us, we can go over here. Let's go ahead and run that because we have to install Selenium on our Colab instance. In this case, I'm going to be running headless, so you won't see the website or the browser opening and closing or doing stuff. If you want to run this later in Jupyter Notebooks, this is how you set up your driver. We'll go ahead and bring that in. But this right here, that's where we paste that XPath. So what the driver is so that's what's running your browser. It then looks for that element and then allows you to interact with it. In this case, it's just click. So I went ahead and previously wrote this up, but it's just a function. It goes in, it's past the driver, it goes ahead and it's past a pre-existing data frame. Then it will go in and it'll use beautiful soup. So we'll isolate just the table, which we can see right here. So if we go in and inspect, so we want just the table out of this. We can then grab that, copy XPath, We go in there and we'll grab just the table. We'll go ahead and get the HTML from that table. And with Beautiful Soup and the HTML parser, we'll go ahead and get that. It'll find all of the rows, give us a list of those. Remember how we did that before by looking for the TR tags. They'll go through all of them and then break those out, and we can get our header, which is our first, and our rows. And then with this here, we can then pass a data frame back with the rows for our header information and then for our columns. After that, we'll go ahead and format to time series data. One of those, sort of do it first a month, and then we'll sort our values to make sure. And then we'll go concatenate the temporary one, data frame that we set up, with the one that we passed to it. And then we'll pass both that and the driver back. So that's how that function works. But I go ahead and I have an example here if you guys want to go ahead and try it. Yeah, so you can watch it click that. I am not a robot. But if you guys want to give it a try, we can go ahead and do that. I laid it out. It's pretty simple for 1, 2, and 3. I'll give you guys just a second to try it, and then I'll do it, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the next. So let me pop back over here. Let's see if I can actually see chats. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and give a working example here. And then once we have those elements in there, we can go ahead and root out indentation. And then what we see when we're running headless is it actually is in the background interacting with each of these websites, and it's opening it up in the browser. We have that there. Once that works, we'll go ahead and go in and we're going to reformat some of these. So these are actually set up as strings right now, just because of how it pulled it off the website. We'll reformat some of those. And all I did is we had wherever it was empty, I put them as zeros. And then we can go in and if we want and take a peek at that and plot some of those cumulative curves. So, but that's about it. Yeah. So let's see here, share. See if I can pop back over. Stop sharing and actually see the questions here. Yeah. So did anybody have any other questions on that? Going about either using Selenium or requests? It's kind of a basic example, but you can make it as complex as you want. I've scraped out the Railroad Commission for their LAS files, and that one you have drop-down lists and all types of other web elements that you have to interact with that definitely make it a little more challenging. We'll call it that. So.
So Matt, have you talked to anybody at like these state agencies and asked them kind of if they're considering putting the data out there in a more accessible way so people don't have to go through this process?
Not right off. I have seen two different trends. We're going to make it hard so people don't scrape. And on the other side of it, we're going to let the people that want the data to just have it, so we decrease our web traffic. And there's definitely a difference in there. North Dakota's website is set up so it is very easy to scrape. But then again, you have, for example, Oklahoma, and it's a booger. So they don't make anything easily accessible or queryable. So, but
yeah, recently the Texas State Side of the Railroad Commission made a lot of their spatial data available through like FTP and also some of the drilling data, and they have a really nice schedule now. Like the drilling data is updated the third Wednesday of every month. I know just on here as well, but we have a lot of the data from the Railroad Commission coming in, daily or weekly, depending on easily now. Did not used to be like that a year ago.
yeah, I remember when they used to charge for all the well spots and everything like that. So
yeah.
Resource read up on this. I'd go to the documentation for Selenium. Their documentation is pretty good, as well as for requests. I have this thing up there. If you have something, try it first. But if you get stuck on something, feel free to reach out. I'm helping out. We're happy to help. So that was a question about where else to read up on this and other resources.
Are there any other sites or anything else that you scraped you would recommend us looking into?
Oh, ones to scrape to learn on?
Yep.
State resources. Wyoming currently asks you not to. Just so you know that. There was I believe it was a state level Supreme Court case where some folks sued LinkedIn because LinkedIn was blocking them. So this is an evolving thing as it goes through. So just try to stick to what websites and their terms of service allow you to. Most states you're okay. COGC is pretty forward. I will say that if you go in, and Michael Hardy, me, worked on a project for Colorado Geological Survey a while back, that there are LIS files in things that don't say well logs. So yeah, those are good. If you want a more challenging one, try the Railroad Commission. New Mexico has a ton of rasters up. So, but let's see here. If there's anybody interested, most of the users on here, I imagine, are using Pandas already, but we have an Intro to Pandas course with a collaborative project that I'm working with, the Crew.Assay podcast. That's actually tomorrow evening. And we've gotten some more funding to open up the webinar from AAPG's Members in Transition Fund, as well as some of the other organizations that we're partnering with. So if you want some more free resources on that, and learning that, that's available. And I also teach a Python course, Introductory for Geosciences, or Geoscientists, through RMAG and Minds, but our October session is actually already sold out. So, but keep an eye on that. We will be offering that again. So,
speaking of the Pandas, it was kind of revelation to me to notice that Pandas has a pd.read HTML, and you can pass it a URL.
Oh.
Yeah. And so what it does, it like automatically runs a beautiful soup for you and parses through all the tables. So if you have a nice HTML table, like if you have a good web developer who uses the tables how the tables are supposed to be used, then it will, then that function pd.read HTML will return a list of tables for you. And so then you just kind of have to go through each of the tables, and it's like it's a list of Pandas data frames from all the tables on the web page.
Wow.
Which like it doesn't work on a lot of websites, but like you might as well try it on the first pass and see if it works. It can save like a ton of time trying to deal with like reading through the HTML. I think it's worth it if you're going to get into scraping a lot to spend some time reading about like the basics of web development and understand like how these websites are put together. If you just know a little bit of HTML, then it will make this so much easier to figure out the patterns and actually trying to figure out how the data is stored in the text of the website.
Yeah, there's also some websites that will block you if you're using requests. If you get a little bit farther in and you're not being malicious about it, you can go in and you can actually put header information in your request that makes it look like you're getting it from a browser. So I talk about a workflow that I found especially useful scraping like this. Yeah, so we were going through at work and looking at conservation dockets in Oklahoma, looking at different activity. And I went through and wrote up a scraper for some of their documentation down there and then combined that with regular expressions to pull out the PLSS descriptions and then utilize that in order to give lat long points for each of those documents on where they were. And then I could go ahead and do a chloropleth map on, depending on what type of conservation docket it was, where it was, and then we could also go ahead and pull out some what operator it was. So that was pretty useful. But well, any other questions? Not?
Has anybody else done anything kind of in the scraping realm that they found useful that might help some of us out?
I've gotten into it, pulling lots of state data that IHS doesn't seem to be pulling, and trying to map up other properties to understand more about the subsurface, and then also for building like automated competitor analysis tools.
Looks like there's a few more questions.
Was it the GitHub library for this course or for the stuff I was mentioning about Oklahoma? The Oklahoma stuff's proprietary for him. Oh, this course. Yeah. Hold on a second.
Can you make a comment about how you encounter scraping and database management so that you're not constantly doing a brand new pull, but trying to maintain and update a data set as opposed to using scraping?
Yeah, it's best to have best practice set up ahead of time. Otherwise, you get a ton of repeating data. A lot of times I'll do timestamps on stuff and actually maintain a backend that I keep, and then I'll process that. And then I actually have two machines here. We've switched different services from Dropbox to Box, and then it links up with a Chromebox down in Dallas that they have. So they have a live feed map off of that. But I usually pre-process, get it into pandas, clean it up that way, and add whatever I need to it, and then you can put it through SQL or whatever you would like to do. So, and depending on size of it, sometimes I just leave it in CSVs. So.
Do you have any comments for people, depending on like different companies' IT systems? I've certainly stretched how our network was designed by doing stuff like this. Do you have any advice for talking to your IT group about how to do this better?
Yeah, I just tell them that I'm going to end up doing this, and I try to work around it. I definitely have changed how to set up so they have certain times that they're moving stuff and find out when that is. and then change the wait times that I'm doing for what. So if I have a long running scrape and I know that they're going to be doing stuff during, X and X time period with, backing up computers during that stuff to out to a farm, then I'll go ahead and increase my wait times during those time periods. I also, a lot of times, if I have a long running scrape during normal usage of a website, during business hours, I'll go ahead and decrease or increase the wait time in between cycles. And then I'll go ahead and speed it up at night when there's less people using it.
I've pulled a lot of fantasy football data this way, but I don't think I've actually ever done it for work. So if anybody needs combine metrics, let me know. I've got a lot of that. But you did mention regular expressions. Are you pretty good at those, or is anyone on here pretty good? Because I use them and they're really powerful, but like I just do not understand them. I just look for an example that works.
I always have to look it up and go back to the documentation on it. I use them a lot, but doesn't mean I completely understand or am native to them. So I think that anybody that's used regular expressions or tried to, it's not obvious at first.
Okay.
Just to the regex point, I'm putting a link in the chat to a online regex tester that I found to be very handy.
Yeah, those are pretty good. I'm still usually just flailing to figure out something that works though.
Pretty much that's my workflow is whenever I need the regular expression, I Google the syntax and then open that regex tester in another tab and then keep trying until it works. And then, those are the 3 steps. This to me kind of an interesting question to talk about. Like, I guess these states are legally obligated, or they're encouraged to promote business in the state to make all this data available, but they really make us jump through a lot of hoops to get it. So I even for the manual. But I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of, it's frustrating that they make the data available, but they don't really make it available for easy to use. But I guess I'm glad to hear that Texas is making all the steps, positive steps for that.
Yeah, here's that court case I was talking about too.
Awesome. Well, does anybody else have any questions for Matt? All right. Perfect. Well, I know Kurt mentioned in the intro, we have a lot of exciting talks coming up. We are trying to not overwhelm everyone with the weekly webinars anymore, so we're going to move to every other week. So Alec Walker kind of showed us and talked last week about some of the cool things that he's doing. He's going to have a talk on random forest and neural nets and a couple different machine learning techniques and how to get data ready for those. And then also Michael Hardy's going to give a talk on Streamlight, I believe, soon as well. And Wes Hammer has a talk on time series, and I know we have a couple other people interested in some of the spatial data-based management. So we'll have a chat coming up probably August, September as well. If anybody else has something that they would like to present on that you think the group would find interesting, please feel free to reach out to Kurt or I. but these have been great. Thank you very much, Matt. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Intro and very realistic. I know a lot of us try to get a lot of data from the state sites. So thank you everybody for attending, and we will virtually see you all on July 14th.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care, guys.